Good morning. Good morning. Hope everybody's doing well. Good to see Art, Shooter, Marbles. Good morning, V. Good morning, Althea. Michelle. If I specifically hit like, can we start? Yep, that's what did it. That's what I was waiting for. What took you so long? So I think today we're going to spend some time on Richard Allen's probable cause affidavit. I read it again last night and realized we have a whole lot of images to match up with the discussion going on within those documents. Good morning, GP. Hey, Jill. Carol Murray, good morning. Good morning, Teresa. Good morning, Patricia. Good to see you, Julianne. We'll just hang out and let people kind of show up, mosey on in, and then we'll get started. Legion. Sup? Sup, Purdue? Good to see you. Good morning, Phil. BN, good morning. Teresa, I need to renew my membership. Okay. It's funny, see. That's the first time I've ever heard of it. I had to go look it up. I don't know. See, are you likely to have a bad reaction, or is that a real thing? Hey, Steffa, good morning. Is this a members? No. No. Usually our members only meetings are on Wednesday. So we will have one this Wednesday, the 21st, and then a really special one on the 28th. Mike, good to see you. Good morning. Yeah, I don't like to take drugs unless you count Mary Jane and coffee. That's about it. Good to see everybody. Yukio. Crack Hills. Yeah, that's why you should pull up your pants. Crack Hills. No? Sorry. Got to sleep in this morning. I'm not on my A game. We'll see after this cup of coffee here. All right, let's get started. Hey, Glitter, your opinion don't mean shit. Good morning to you. Love the name. Beth. Hey, what's up, Frank? Rebecca. Toon Army. Good morning from Cleveland, Sleuth. Shout out to Cleveland. Welcome. Thank you, C. Do disagree that Richard Allen coming forward helped him. No, you made my brain kind of start clicking when you said that. So let's address that. I do disagree Richard Allen coming forward helped him. I think it's what got him caught. He obviously didn't know he was on video. They'd have no name if he laid back just a description. Well, the thing is, if he came forward to law enforcement, right, and told them, "Hey, I was on those trails," it was most likely because his family knew he was there, or somebody that he knew that he was there. Somebody was going to come forward and say, "Hey, look, this guy was there, and he was dressed just like the guy on the bridge." So I think if he wouldn't have come forward, I think it was better for him to come forward than for him to let somebody else come forward. Because I think in that case, if you bring that information to a judge, you're more likely to get that search warrant. Okay. Think about it. You're the investigator and you're looking up at the judge and you're at a desk with the judge and you're presenting a probable cause, asking for a signature so that you could search this person's home. And you say, well, there's 4 witnesses that we know of. There's another possible witness. Okay, okay. Have you spoken with the gentleman? Yes. What did he have to say? Well, he basically admitted to everything but seeing the girls. Well, then you have nothing. What are you going to do? Sir, we're here to search your home because you were on the trails today. That's not legal. Now, take him coming forward out of it, and the judge asks them the same question, right? Have you spoken with this gentleman? No, he hasn't come forward. Okay, well, how did you find out about him? Well, we had some witnesses come forward saying that they know that he was there and they noticed that he hadn't come forward on his own. Okay, I'll sign it. Good morning, Alice. What date? Oh, you mean the conservative or conservation officer? In my opinion, it was either the 13th or the 14th. But yeah, it would be good to clear that up. Camaro Lover, good to see you. Hey, Bossy. Sparky Doo, good morning, Sleuth. At the doctor, but I'm listening. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you have a good visit. Copper, how are you? Good morning, Kevin. Every time I hear that name, Kevin, I hear the movie Home Alone, where they yell his name when they realize that they left him. Kevin. Everybody's yelling his name. Thank you, V. Good morning, Jerry. Get it together, Michelle. C says, good point, but no one came forward either way. I do get why he came forward. Yeah, and that's just my point. I think that, yeah, it may get him convicted in the end, but I think that is the reason why. I think it bought him some time, if anything. Very proactive, but he obviously had no idea he was on film. Great job, Libby. Yes, and I think that's going to be the deciding factor. Because I mean, I had the I don't know what you call it, that moment of a little bit of clarity, I guess. That aha moment, I guess. Spent so much time trying to analyze that video that Libby took of that guy on the bridge, right? Trying to figure out if there's even the slightest hint to who it might be. And then, you're comparing faces. Is it this Klein person? Is it Ron Logan? Look, I see a mustache. You know what I mean? He's not short, he's tall. Just countless hours. And I'm not the only one. And then all of a sudden, boom, rumors start to spread, right? I think we started hearing early on the 28th that morning. Somebody, I think it might have been Tara German or somebody, put out that, hey, today's the day. And also an image of this guy. And we're like, well, that's interesting. I'm looking forward to hearing more about this. And then all all of a sudden we're flooded, inundated with all these freaking images of this guy walking, playing pool, and it was just like that aha, there's the guy. Dear babies. That's crazy. I've seen some videos where they come running to the door. It's a different world. We might have coyotes here instead of deer. Hey, Alice, Timmy, Boston. Good to see you guys. Kennedy. Yes, but they had an unspent bullet. They could have checked his home for a matching weapon after he admitted to being there. He came forward to help, he claimed. That's a good point, but you don't want to tell him you have a bullet until you have a search warrant, right? If you tell him you found a bullet, he's going to get rid of the gun. To me, that was the most coveted piece of information they have, I think. And they did pretty good with it. And I think they may not have even pursued Richard Allen unless that information, because it coincided with it being leaked. And people have done a good job keeping that information to themselves until just before Richard Allen's arrest. There was talk of it. From Steffa Sleuth, what was the date of David Erskine's text? That may explain some of the validity. I mean, I seen those, I believe, in 2000, early 2018. And then I was also part of a Facebook group, and so was Erskine. And there was a conversation, and I watched it live. But for some reason, the admins of that group kicked him and like started deleting stuff. I was like, "What the hell are you doing?" He was explaining everything. He said, "Yep, I sent those texts." He's like, "Certain things I won't talk about." What happened is somebody set him up. He didn't know that those were going to be leaked. Somebody set him up, and I guarantee Anna reamed him. Like, what are you doing, man? C says, what is true is that one of your theories is probably right. Well, there's so many of them, yeah. At this point, the odds are in our favor. Kennedy says they could have done this 6 years ago. Yes, they could have, but the problem is they run a risk. There's a chance if this is all they have, Richard Allen will walk free, and they could be retried again in the future. So I think they always knew that it would turn into a pressure campaign. You know, during this process, they're going to hope to squeeze him and apply as much pressure as they can before they roll the dice in court. Because, in my opinion, if they found anything during the search, they wouldn't have called him in and they wouldn't have waited. But it sounds like that bullet is all they have because they called him in for questioning and they said, hey, did anybody have your weapon? Did anybody have access? Is it possible that somebody had this weapon without your knowledge? He said, no, absolutely not. They said, well, that's all we need. We're going to go ahead and do now what we hesitated to do 6 years ago because, we know that we have an uphill battle. And that might be even why part of the reason why I've stepped back. That kind of pressure. He's like, we don't have enough here. And I know he came out and said, hey, was there ever a time that there was this one person? Well, no, maybe not officially, you know. Every time. Oh, Kevin. So I feel bad with the name Kevin and what's the one Rocky? Adrian. What's another famous name? I think the PC criteria would have been met had they shown Richard Allen picture to the witness. His admission he was there had they ran a report to see if he had a 40 caliber gun due to casing found. But then you would have to ask yourself, why were you showing Richard Allen's picture to these people? Like why are you showing this innocent man's face in a lineup? They're going to ask the court that. They're going to say, "Well, we were suspicious of him." Well, that's not fair. To me, I feel like it has to be like a sequence of events that you can prove in a court of law, not something that you're kind of feeding into it. You're not controlling the narrative. The narrative is controlling where you go next. But I do believe they had their eyes on him from the beginning. They know it's tied together, I think. All of it. They're just having trouble finding the tether. Purdue says they searched the Weber house multiple times with less evidence. Yep. Yeah, they were just as interested in that property as they were in the Ron Logan property. They also were able to get a search warrant for another home, not even near the bridge. I wonder what's in that. They're going to release that, and then everybody's going to be accusing old Maxwell. Wild boar? Yeah, we do. People hunt them out here with their bows. What's up, CJK? Good to see you, Deb. Tattoo, hey. Same thing happened in the Lyon sisters case. Years later, they went back through all the evidence and found a witness statement from a young man. Then they solved the case. Yeah, Doug Carter did say today is not the day. Or he said today is not that day. Question: do you think Tobe had that bullet on his desk as a message to Richard Allen in that interview he did? No, I think he had it there as a reminder. The last thing he would ever want to do is tip off Richard Allen about that. If anything, it was a mistake that he left it out. Yeah, Glitter. I mean, there was this it was a great conversation. He was first it was this huge argument, and then I kind of stepped in and I was like, "You guys, do you realize you have this huge Facebook group dedicated to the Delphi homicide, and the closest person you've ever communicated right now is on your platform giving you information, and you're attempting to argue with this person. You're threatening to boot them on and demanding that they answer all of your questions. Like, do you even care at all?" And sure enough, he starts to provide information, and because one of the admins, he's not answering quick enough, blocks him. I was like, I'm out of here. I left the group that day. That right after that. Bye. The bullet seems very conspiracy to me, but if Richard Allen was not alone, I can see someone else conveniently dropping the bullet at the scene. You can see it. How do you get from that not happening to that happening? I mean, hopefully there's a few steps in between we can talk about. It's like somebody cut the film and we missed about 20 minutes of the movie, and then oh, there it's back on, you know. What? He dropped a bullet at the scene. What? We missed the whole foreshadowing. Slay the Rings. It has conflicting information, though. Abby was like a doll in the same clothes, hands folded. Well, he doesn't say she was like a doll. He said she was sitting up, or no, said her hood was up and hands folded like a doll. And you got to remember, um, Erskine doesn't know that he's talking to the world. Who knows? Maybe he's being manipulated. He might be trying to impress somebody. He might be providing. Remember, there's a human variable to everything. Humans have their own personal motivation for doing what they do. We know that they lie. We know that they embellish. We know that they stretch. And we know that they withhold. So who knows? You have to take it with a grain of salt, is what I'm trying to say. The unspent bullet and search for the specific match of gun was talked about a while back on Reddit and one of the Facebook groups. A specific, yeah, good thing that that information didn't take. That is true, and it kind of just faded away. What's up, Maserati? Good to see you, Melissa Thomas Hill. Because that bullet on Tobe's desk was the same caliber as the found casing, wasn't it? And it was so prominent on his desk, such a weird coincidence, if not deliberate. It's definitely not deliberate. And it could mean something to Tobe and have nothing, absolutely nothing to do with the case. Hey, what's up, Bogey? Good to see you. Mark, good morning. Brick with eyes. Yeah, I'm sure they had they were looking at Brad. I think they were looking at Brad the same way they were looking at Ron Logan. But there's a reason that they didn't have any charges against anybody other than Richard Allen. There's a reason for that. I think they were hoping at one of these searches, it was just going to tie everything together. They're going to find everything that they need, and it was going to tie it all together. They have a good idea, but they have nothing to kind of put in the faces of their suspects. People are smart. They're not going to talk, but if you give them some information that's going to hurt them, then they're more likely to try to steer the narrative in their direction. They want you to hear their half truth before anybody else. They found an unspent round. Thank you, Tattoo. Alice says if that bullet was evidence, it wouldn't be just sitting on his desk out in the open. But yeah, of course, they don't believe that that's the actual bullet. They're just saying, did he place a bullet there knowing that he was going to be interviewed, to send a subliminal message to the killer? Only the killer's going to know. But at the same time, think about it. If the killer knew that they had that bullet, the only way to verify that that's his bullet is with the gun, matching them together, right? So if he knows they have the bullet, he's going to make it pretty hard for them to find that gun. The only reason that Richard Allen is in jail right now is because he did not get rid of that gun. When they say we're holding things close to the chest, they were talking about that bullet. If Richard Allen knew the girls were at the bridge because of the Snapchat Libby uploaded, then he knew they had a phone. I think when he finally hear the truth of all of this, it's going to be horrific. I think so as well. And I think that's why law enforcement hasn't done anything. They need they need to find the connection to all of this. Otherwise, they're all just going to scurry back into their little holes. And I think that's what happened. I think they wanted to get it all tied together. They just couldn't do it. Big fish, small pond. Did he not know he cycled the bullet through his gun? I think he knew it, but I don't think he thought about it. Most people until this case didn't even realize you could do that. They always thought you had to shoot the gun, and then you could test the bullet and then the back of the casing where the firing pin hit. So Richard Allen could have been saying to himself, like, I didn't fire it, so there's no way they can track it back to me. It's just like a brand new bullet. But nope, there was extraction marks on it. Malice says exactly that gun would disappear. So obviously he isn't that smart at his game. I don't think it's that easy, Alice. You got to remember with these killers, there's a weird ego factor. They commit these crimes because they really believe that they can outsmart law enforcement. They've convinced themselves that risk is worth the reward. They're going to get away with it. So when he starts thinking about, do I really want to get rid of this gun that I covet? I like this gun. It means a lot to me. Maybe it's not the first time this gun has been used. Maybe it is a trophy in itself. Why would I get rid of this gun? I didn't even shoot the gun. Yeah, but you left the bullet there. Yeah, but I didn't fire it. I'm good. There's no way they can tie that to me. I'm not getting rid of this gun. I'm smarter than those investigators, and I'm not parting with this. Hey, Kay, that unspent bullet makes absolutely no sense there. If we're to believe they were moved and staged, why pull out a gun on two dead bodies? Who are you going to threaten with that? Well, you got to realize what makes you think he didn't already pull the gun. And if the bullet's extracted, that means he's done with the gun, right? So, what do you do after your target has already been um, immobilized, I guess? You would extract, right? So, I think you have it backwards. If anything, it looks like he's done, right? He's extracting the shell casing. To me, I feel like he was putting the gun away and he didn't want to fire it. So to me, it would make perfect sense. He has the gun holstered, ready to use, and he's done the crime. He's moving the bodies, he's doing the staging and leaving his signatures. And then now it's time to figure out how to get back to his vehicle. Okay, I can't have my gun exposed. I gotta put it back where I was hiding it. But I want to do that safely. Extract the bullet, not even thinking about it. Get all your stuff ready to get out of here so you don't get caught. You're not thinking about that bullet. Where is it, though? It just landed right in between the girls, 2 feet from one of them, actually. He's not thinking about that. He's thinking about, how do I get back to my car and get out of here? Kennedy, Richard Allen admitted to seeing the young girls, yet the conservation officer only made a notation to follow up on the young girls. Why? In my opinion, makes no sense. Makes perfect sense to me. Your job is to disseminate information, right? You got to spread it out. You got to collect it and share it and let it spread, right? So that's a piece of information. He was out there and he saw three girls. Well, what did those three girls see while they were out there? So I mean, it makes sense to me. It's like, where is your investigation leading you? But there was also a comment that whoever took Richard Allen's information in that short statement didn't believe that it was true. I think the word they used in the article was unfounded. Good morning, Don. Hey, Silas. Thanks. I appreciate you. Yeah, it's just the way it appears to be premeditated that I just can't get over. So they say he had a jacket on, a hood from something underneath over his head, and something covering his mouth. So I'm wondering if he was just bundled up, knowing he was going to have to take off a couple layers and get rid of it. Good point, V. If that's even true, you know. Hey, Charles, I'm still not convinced on the science behind the bullet. And really, it is the jury going to be convinced? You know, they're going to hire these experts. And so it doesn't matter. That wouldn't be enough for me. But what about this jury they've selected? Will it be enough for them? You know, you're going to have these experts that come up and they're going to go ahead and they're going to give their little salesman pitch, their little spiel. What are they going to think? And I think they're just going to use that information as a catalyst, you know, into their little strategy. So in the back of their mind, they're going to have that bullet. Every piece of information, they're going to confirm it with that. Michelle, that is a yes. Hey, what's up, Fig? I think Richard Allen was misfiled as a witness. I think the conservation officer was tasked with finding witnesses, not suspects, hence the follow up comment about other witnesses. Gotcha. Charles says he must have cleared it to put it back in his pocket. Yeah. I always assumed that maybe that was a holster, but I don't think so. I think he had other weapons in some clothing underneath that blue jacket. And he may have just had that pistol shoved in his pocket, like you said. And he maybe even in his pants, you know. And he doesn't want to shoot himself. You know, he's like, I'm panicked. I got to get out of here. Last thing I need to do is shoot myself in the leg. Let's go ahead and clear that out of there. I think you just made a big mistake. Wasn't thinking about it. CJK, so what about the wild rumor that the BG found Abby's phone and sent crime scene photos to it? Read it on that outlandish online group, but read it somewhere on a YouTube chat recently. I don't know. Didn't hear it until you put it in the chat, CJ. Abby was placed there on the ground like a doll, hood up, hands folded, wearing the same clothes as in the pic from the bridge. Verse Abby survived until the next day. She tried to crawl. I think you have it backwards. No, you were right. Abby was on. Yeah, and then Erskine said she tried to crawl away, but I'm assuming that how would he know? So he might be getting secondhand information, putting together his own story based off what he knows. But what does he really know? Fig says, yeah, the unspent bullet could have fell at any point, so who knows? Well, I'm pretty sure it's easy to believe that Chadwell has no connection. There's a lot of bad people out there doing bad things, but I believe that there is a connection. There's more likely a connection between KK and Richard Allen than there is anything to do with Chadwell, that's for sure. Bossy, I think something spooked him and he cocked it again, forgetting one was chambered. Maybe the bullet was a signature. The thing is, I'm not sure about that. If he left that bullet there, I just feel like he wouldn't have kept the gun. I think he cleared his gun so that he could hide it, and he wasn't even thinking about that. Because I have a feeling that in order to intimidate them, he put one in the chamber. I don't think he's somebody that carries a gun often. He's not a daily. He doesn't carry daily. He just has a gun. Today he's going to use that gun, but I'm not going to walk around with this with one in the chamber. I'm not comfortable doing that. So when he gets, he has the gun in his pocket. He's approaching the girls. In order to intimidate them, he's going to chamber one. Right? He's chambered it. Now they're going to do what he says. And when he's all done, he's going to unchamber it. Yeah, V. Marie. I think he did get really lucky. But at the same time, all of the people that were there, and the reason the girls might have wanted to be there is because they all knew each other. I think they wanted to get there earlier. Like everybody's already there. But we can't get a ride. Maybe we'll catch them. But by the time they got there and their whole crew was there, it was too late. The other half of their crew had to get going. Abby and Libby were late to the little get together. The snow day fun day. Probably started like around much earlier, noonish. Maybe even before that. If this unspent bullet evidence was real, it should have been included in the Ron Logan search warrant to look for that specific type of firearm. I think that the only reason we saw the Ron Logan affidavit is because it wasn't in there. I think anything that had that in there is most likely sealed, and why we haven't seen the Maxwell, because that's when I first heard about it. I was told a long time ago that they found a 40 caliber weapon on the Maxwell property, and that they did some kind of testing on it, and it was cleared. Maserati. I own several firearms myself. It makes no sense for anybody to leave an unfired bullet at a crime scene. Could someone really be that careless? Well, think about it. You're shaking. Your hands are shaking, right? What have I done? What have I done? Oh my God. I can't believe this just happened. I can't believe I did it, or something along those lines. Or, I just don't think you're in the right state of mind. Last thing you're thinking about is an unspent casing, right? Maybe if you shot it, you're like, I need to get that. That's evidence. But unspent, it just, in their mind, it's like a brand new bullet. Nothing to see here. I don't think this killer. I think they had firearms, but I don't think they used them a lot. I don't think they went out shooting. You know, not everybody that owns guns really is very familiar with them. Sometimes it's just for protection. Big fish. So, has an unspent round ever been used in court? Yes, often. Sometimes it wins, sometimes it loses. It's up to. I'm telling you, it's all going to be about experts selling a narrative to the juror. Hopefully, we this thing never goes to court. Hopefully, we see um, Richard Allen provide a few names for us. He takes his deal. He can go spend the rest of his life or 50 years in prison, and then we can go find these other people who put the plan together and may have even been holding the sharp weapon. Hey, Darren, good to see you. Something is very off with the conservation officer report and the FBI's denial of what happened with that interview, in my opinion. C says, bottom line, unless this has a crazy ending coming from ISP and Co, have done a horrible job with this case in our damage control mode. I don't know if they're in damage control mode. I just think that they didn't have a whole lot to go on. They still don't. What they did was they ran into more problems and a bigger conspiracy and less answers. So the problem is getting bigger, but their solution is getting smaller. Thank you, V, for a super sticker. Appreciate you. What's up, Arch? The jury will convict a ham sandwich in this case. I hope not. K, they searched Ron Logan's house a week before the search warrant to check for guns, so they would not put it in the search warrant you're referring to. Okay, we know that there was a gun. It says that one of the girls yells, he has a gun. It's in the probable cause affidavit. We know there's a gun there. So the likelihood of there being an unspent bullet, it's really high. I'm not sure what you think he's doing, like with the gun. He uses it to get their attention, so he has it. So it's very possible that he already chambered around. I'm not sure what you think happened. Wonder Girl, in the Lifetime transcript, Becky said she was told by law enforcement it was an abduction. So I think the planning isn't what everyone thinks. It was never to murder them at the bridge. Kennedy, and then why not follow up on Richard Allen too after the parking lot interview? Not only the young girls, I think Richard Allen is the person law enforcement said misled them. See, I think we're not getting the truth about where this tip narrative came from. I think that they're trying to protect a witness, trying to protect some kind of process, maybe. They don't want these criminals knowing how they're acquiring certain information. What were their methods? Things like that. Yes, I think this is the one thing that was the most frustrating for law enforcement was the ability for people that knew about this crime to keep their mouths shut. And I think that's why we are where we are. I don't think investigators accomplished what they were hoping to accomplish. They're back to square one and they're going to do their best now that they're there. It was their worst fear, pursuing this case the way they are now. But it's been 6 years, and the information's starting to come out. And they got to do it. They got to move forward with the case, and hopefully, the pressure of it, the embarrassment of it for Richard Allen to his family, his name, um, and the fear of facing the rest of your life in prison will be enough for him to come forward. Well, so much for reading the probable cause affidavit. We probably have about 15 minutes, but I think we're having a good conversation in the chat. So no love was lost. V. Marie, yep, at Arch. I'm personally worried about about an insanity plea. Yeah, it seems like they're trying to foreshadow that, right? We got the talk of medical records, psychosis. Maybe they're going to be like, oh, he was out of his mind. He doesn't even remember doing it. He blacked out. Seen that defense before. Bird Blue, the unspent bullet matched his gun, but I don't think they're going off of that. I think they matched the girl's DNA on the gun. They may have pistol hit the girls with the pistol from behind. That's possible. I do believe that that is what happened. You have this he's holding this gun and he knows in the back of his mind he cannot shoot it because although he's using it to control them, it could easily be turned into an alarm system. Last thing he wants is to alarm anybody. So that could become frustrating. They've seen my face. They know that I'm an attacker. They know that I've already committed a crime. I basically kidnapped these girls and they're fighting back. They're not doing what I'm telling them to do. They're realizing that I'm not using the gun. Maybe they even fought over the gun. Maybe they all had it in their hand at one time. And there's just no way he's going to pull that trigger. Out comes the blade. Bossy's saying, I'm betting the full PCA has irrefutable evidence against Richard Allen. I still believe others involved, at least one. I do not think they have any other evidence against Richard Allen other than what we've seen. I think the information in there might lead to the fact that others might be involved, but I don't think it really points at him because if they had something like DNA or anything from the victims there, Abby and Libby, I think they would have kicked in his door. I think they would have had the SWAT team kick in the door, get everybody on the floor. They would have done all that, but instead, even after they had their results on the casing which they had on the 19th, they didn't call in Richard Allen until like a few days after that. And he came in on his own. They didn't even arrest him there. They just had to verify that they got him on record saying that nobody had access to that gun because their whole case basically is tying that bullet to the gun. So we got to make sure nobody's trying to say it was in anybody else's hands. What's up, Ruckus? Good to see you. Wonder Girl says there were at least 4 people who found the girls, 2 sets of people. Well, there was more than that. There was a search party on one side of Deer Creek and a search party on the other side of Deer Creek, one near the bridge and near the private drive, and the other kind of coming down from Ron Logan's property. And they were meeting kind of right where they ended up finding. First, it was clothing. And then I think somebody kicked up the deer walking towards where they found the clothing. And then that's when they found the girls. Thank you, Cindy. Yep. Let me know in the comments what you think. Got about 5 minutes left, guys. Try to get to as many of these comments as I can. Yeah, anything's possible. If Richard Allen had help, why would they make him carry all that stuff inside his jacket across that rickety bridge? Why would they handle that? Seems strange. I don't think he had a whole bunch of stuff. I just think he had his knife, he had his gun, and then he had multiple layers of clothing. Because he knew as soon as he was done doing whatever it was that he was doing, he was going to shed those layers. Pretty sure that gun has a way to unchamber around with. No, unchambering around and ejecting it are the exact same thing. The only way to unchamber around is to eject it. Yes, I believe so, Shiloh. He was comfortable enough to unalive 2 girls allegedly, but not comfortable to have a bullet already in the chamber. All would have to do was show the gun. Yeah, Camaro. That's why we got to take those texts with a grain of salt. Well, definitely something that a premeditated murderer might do would be to clean that casing. I wouldn't expect. I think that something he may have realized, so I wouldn't expect to find any fingerprints on it. But for him to overlook possible extraction marks, I think that's more likely. Angela says, "Do we know if Richard Allen went to the conservation officer after they showed the video of Bridge Guy? The information that I've gathered makes it seem as if before. I think it would have been more likely that he would get busted if he came forward after, because then I think the conservation officer would have a reference in his mind, like, okay, what were you wearing? A blue jacket, blue jeans. And I don't think Richard Allen would have came forward knowing that image was out there. But I think the fact that he came forward on the 13th or the 14th is what allowed it to kind of slip through the cracks, I guess. Bossy says they are under no obligation to put that information in the warrant. And even if they did, they could have had it sealed. But there would also be a document out there requesting it to be sealed. So we would have that paper trail. You're missing my point. From what we know, the girls weren't shot. No, but we know that there was a gun. So what's the difference? Why would he still have a gun out where they lay slaughtered? Well, where'd you think his gun went? You think he left it at the bridge? It's right there. Wherever he goes, the gun goes, right? So inside that gun, there's casings, unspent casings. It only takes one or two movements for him to reach to that gun and eject that casing. So that's why I'm confused by what you're referring to. You don't have to shoot a gun to eject a casing. You just pull the hammer back and one will come flying out. So he could have lost it for all we know. Hey, Leslie. Good to see you. What problems, what solutions? I would say the problems would be finding your answers, right? The road to your answer is a lot narrower than the road, is much wider than your road to solutions. And solutions meaning answers and furthering your investigation. Problems being the opposite, of course. Okay, they knew exactly what type of gun took that ammo. Wouldn't be hard to find out who owns whose particular weapons. I mean, have you ever done that before, Kay? Have you ever made a list of everybody that owns a type of gun? Do you know what that entails? It might not be as easy, and there might be even some legal roadblocks to getting that accomplished. Maybe even some cooperation between different companies. Maybe people aren't keeping records. It's not as easy as you think. Shay says the bridge seems like a bad place to have planned this. If the trail ends there, it could be assumed that it could also be a busy place. Think about that. Well, to me, it's like what was down the hill? There was a private drive down that hill. Is that, not only was there a private drive, The drive doesn't mean that there's a car waiting. If you watch Delphi Timeline, there's a video there where Bill, who created that channel, is walking the private drive out of there, and it's extremely secluded. So for all we know, their intentions were to take him that direction, and the girls had other ideas in mind. I feel like whatever it was that they had planned, Abby and Libby were a thorn in those plans. All right, guys, that is our time. I want to thank everybody who participated in the chat and who was able to make it here to the live stream. If you're part of the replay crew, drop me a comment. I'll get back to you. If you guys could hit the thumbs up on the way out. I actually think the reward went down just prior to the arrest. That's what I'm thinking, shooter. Probably cock the gun to scare them, get their attention. And then now that he's completed whatever it was that he was going to, he doesn't want to risk it, especially if he's got to tuck away that weapon. And maybe he was looking for it. Maybe that's why he was there so long. He's like, oh man, what did I do with that? Maybe he spent some time looking for it. Maserati, I live 2 hours from Delphi. We are familiar with how law enforcement has dealt with cases similar to these in the past. Mind you, Richard Allen had owned the firearm since 2001. Yep. So the girls were murdered, then he moved them. Why would the bullet be where he moved them? So why was the gun out after they were moved? Well, you got to remember the shell casing was ejected. So you're only going to put a bullet in prior to something, and then wouldn't you eject it when you're done? So ejecting it to me is something you do at the end of whatever it is that you were using the gun for. I don't know. It makes sense to me. I no longer need this bullet that's in this gun, so I'm going to eject it. Now, why did he eject it? That's only he can answer that, and only we can speculate. But we are pretty sure that he had a gun, which makes it more likely that he may have dropped a shell casing. I don't understand people. I know where people are going with this. They want to ignore that, and then they want to go right to a conspiracy of somebody dropping a casing there. That makes more sense to them, even though they know that Richard Allen or the bridge guy had a gun. Even though he had a gun, that doesn't matter. Somebody dropped a bullet. Not the guy with the gun with bullets in the gun, but a conspiracy that comes along floating through the wind. Drop a little bullet here, and then blows off into the wind. You're leaning more towards that? Ivy says, does Indiana keep a gun registry? I'm sure they do. Question is, do you want to go around telling everybody that you're looking for a specific weapon? Right? That is the most important piece of your case. Unfortunately, that's the best evidence you have. Do you want to go around telling everybody that? There is no case without Richard Allen's gun matching that shell casing. The last thing these investigators ever wanted more than anything to happen in this case was for him to get rid of that weapon. All right, I'm going to go to a couple more and then we're out of here. Let me zip down here to the bottom. Ryan P, hello. It is completely unusual for someone to exit the bridge on that side. Everybody circles back and comes back. Only a local would know that. Thank you, Silas. Thank you, Purdue. Hey, David. Welcome. Yeah. Own 2 guns. They had to be registered. Thank God. I know registration isn't required. And I'm not sure. I think it may even depend on the state. But I'm pretty sure you have to register. Maybe even during the sale. Big Bird. So if he moved him after he murdered them, why was the bullet between 2 dead bodies? Wouldn't it be where he murdered them? Well, he didn't murder them with the bullet. Wouldn't the bullets are inside of a gun, and the gun is most likely with Richard Allen, right? So wherever he goes, the gun and the bullets are going to go with him. He could eject that shell casing anytime he wants to. To me, it makes more sense that he's going to eject it after he's completed everything. No mention of that in his PCA. Bogey says he was caught because ISP got impatient and decided to go through old tips. That's what they said. It made a lot of sense when it was brought to my attention that law enforcement planted it. Magic bullet appears. I mean, that's just a huge jump. Is it possible? I don't see anything. Would I put it past him? No. But I'm not going to jump from reality to blowing in the wind conspiracies. Unless you got something interesting you want to show me, then I'm all aboard. Let's see. And we'll finish with Kay because she's adamant about this. Because the unspent bullet was said to be found in their final resting place, was found between the bodies. No need to pull a gun out on 2 dead bodies. No. But you cannot eject a bullet from a gun while it's still in the holster or tucked away in your pants, right? How are you going to eject that bullet from the gun unless you pull the gun out? You have to pull the gun out and you have to physically eject the bullet. In order to do that, the gun is out and it's in your hands. Doesn't mean you're pointing it at anybody, but it will be out in order to eject the bullet. And in my opinion, the only time you would eject it is when you've completed everything you were out there to do. But that's just me. Yeah, and even further, depending on how fast and how hard you pull back the hammer. I mean, you could really send one flying if you wanted to. Yep, they did take his weapons. Took his truck, his weapons. Sorry, Ivy. Law enforcement has a rep for performing in nefarious activities such as planting evidence. Yeah, but that doesn't mean that they're planting evidence in every case, in every situation. You would really want to say, hey, people who were part of the investigation actually filed a complaint that they believe, such and such. You can't just jump from, oh, yeah, they found evidence. Well, the cops planted it. I mean, I'm sure there was a bunch of people there that may have seen it, all at the same time. Yeah, it burns too. All right, guys, that's all my time. We may or may not get together a little bit later. But for members, I'll see you guys on Wednesday. And I do have a show planned for something tomorrow. So just keep your eyes out for the notifications, and I'll keep you guys up to date. Thanks for hanging out. Have a great day. Peace.